Eau de Parfum by Frapin was first launched in 2015 and the perfumer behind it is Jerome Epinette. It comes in a 100ml bottle and costs around £98. The Orchid Man opens with a blast of punchy bergamot and a teeny tiny touch of soft pepper as well. In the opening everything is crisp, citrusy, a little bit sweet and ever so slightly pineapple-y too, but without fully exploring that note. There's also something that poses as a vague green apple note in the opening too, but that is quite short-lived. The amber joins the show just to sweeten things up a little, and the amber has a very interesting, soft, almost edible quality to it. The bergamot becomes more focused, and added to the mix is the introduction of what I would best describe as being a very friendly leather note. There's a slight fresh ozonic feel to everything, and in the mid we get the addition of some inoffensive, slightly sweet white florals, which really complement everything. That smooth, friendly leather note from before really comes to prominence in the dry down and blends well with everything else that came before it. Now in the base notes there is subtle warmth and waxiness. We get trace elements of amber with the hints of bergamot leather and a woody oak mossy sort of a base. This fragrance evolved very quickly in my skin, and overall the Orchid Man is a slightly linear, but wonderfully executed combination of notes which makes an all-round pleasant fragrance from start to finish. This is something that makes an amazing first impression. It's incredibly easy to wear, stupidly versatile, and good all year round in almost any situation. And for me, this is the very definition of a Swiss Army knife fragrance. And the universal comment that I got from everyone that I tested this out on, including random people, was, that's nice. So when it comes to fragrance and compliments and comments on a fragrance, I think that is probably the most honest that you can receive. The Orchid Man makes for a very subtle but meaningful statement without going over the top. It says, I'm kind of familiar, you won't get why that is right away, but I'm worth investigating. And that right there is the fragrance's hook. It is the introduction to something slightly different by first playing upon the notion of olfactive familiarity. As I've already said, this fragrance evolved very quickly on my skin as kind of sweet, ambery, bergamoty, woodsy, leathery. The friendly, smooth leather aspect of it is slightly more prominent in the warmer weather, in the spring and summer conditions, so that's worth noting. And in terms of sprays, in the spring and summer I will use 3, but in the cooler months, in the autumn and the winter, I'll go 3 to 5. Now technically this fragrance would fall into the niche category, but because it is so versatile and friendly, I would personally describe this as mainstream contemporary elegance. I got average projection for about 5.5 hours before it settled in a lot closer to my skin, so overall the projection gets a 3 out of 5. Longevity. In terms of longevity, the total lifespan of the fragrance on my skin was about 6 hours, so the longevity gets a 3.5 out of 5. And for the sillage, well, sillage, this is where the performance of the fragrance starts to redeem itself, as I was quietly impressed by the peekaboo nature of the sillage, and this element lasted even as the projection of the fragrance began to wane, so yourself and others around you are constantly going to get little whiffs of this throughout the day. So for the sillage, I'm going to give it a 3.5 out of 5. And finally, the overall smell. Overall, I enjoyed this, even though perhaps I necessarily shouldn't. It took me a while to understand why I really like this fragrance beyond the cursory, yeah, this is nice, but. And I think the reasons why I like this fragrance are the reasons why most of the fragrance community, especially sort of the hardcore niche hits out there, are going to dislike this, because personally I think it's offensive, modern, versatile, crisp, citrusy, it's understated, it's not overly punchier in your face, and it's one of those rare fragrances that virtually no one had anything bad to say about it. And when I want to blend into my surroundings a little bit, but maintain a slight sense of uniqueness, the Orchid Man by Frapin is what I reach for. And yeah, it may be relatively simple, it may be relatively linear, it might be perhaps a little bit evocative of certain other fragrances out there, but I still think this is unique, versatile, fresh enough, crisp enough, and enjoyable enough to worth purchasing and to experience positively in its own right, independently of whatever else out there. But I really like this fragrance, and I guess for me, what I like the most about it is it makes me feel happy. So for the overall smell, I have to give it a 4.5 out of 5. So there you go, that's been my little review of the Orchid Man Eau de Parfum by Frapin. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. Cheers for watching and take care.